all the available evidence suggests that the economic future will not be easy for those of us living in Europe together with our families, children and grandchildren, and who have therefore a genuine, not only academic interests in the European future. I would like to state quite clearly that the Czech Republic is a part of Europe, a member of the European Union, and a non-member of the Eurozone. I deliberately differentiate these three entities. They are different. I am afraid that Americans sometimes mix up those three terms. You can't be a member of Europe. There is no membership in Europe. There is a membership in man-made organization called the European Union, and it's necessary to differentiate those terms. What is relevant for my country is the fact that almost 85% of our exports go to Europe, to a region which undergoes both a protracted economic stagnation and an acute sovereign debt crisis. Even with our own freely floating Czech crown, we cannot fully disconnect ourselves from the economic trends in the rest of Europe. To be able to grow the Czech Republic as a textbook case of a small open economy needs a healthy economic growth of its main trading partners, and this is regretfully not the case these days. By the way, this morning, the Czech Statistical Office announced the figure for the GDP growth in the last quarter of 2012, expected figure minus 0.2. Again, we can't escape from the fate of the whole continent. The present economic situation in Europe is not an accident, is not accidental. It is a consequence of at least two things. It's a consequence of the deliberately chosen and gradually impaired European economic and social system on the one hand, and it's a consequence of the more and more centralistic and bureaucratically intrusive European Union institutional arrangements. They both form a fundamental obstacle to any further positive development, an obstacle which cannot be removed by marginal corrections or by eventually more rational short-term economic policies. The problems are deeper. As I said, I see the important part of the problem in the European economic and social system itself. It is more than evident that the overregulated economy, additionally constrained by a heavy load of social and environmental requirements, operating in a paternalistic welfare state atmosphere, cannot grow. This burden is too heavy, and the incentives to a productive work are too weak. If Europe wants to restart its economic development, it has to undertake a fundamental transformation, a systemic change, something we in Central and Eastern Europe had to do 20 years ago. Something similar. The other part of the problem is the European integration model. The excessive and unnatural centralization, harmonization, standardization, and unification of the European continent based on the concept of an ever closer union is another obstacle to any positive development. 2 days ago, I listened to the speech given by the Italian Minister of the Economy, and he made a point that to build such an integration was a necessity. I raised my hand and I asked, what do you mean, such an integration? The current form of European integration is an historical accident. It could have many developments, it could have many variants, and I'm sure that this one is a wrong one. These complex issues deserve to be discussed from many perspectives, but it is evident that they found their climax in the attempt to monetarily unify the whole continent. This was the moment when, to use the economic terminology, when the marginal costs of the European integration project started to visibly exceed its benefits. This evident failure, and it is appropriate to call it a failure, was inevitable, was expected, and was well understood by many of us in advance. Its consequences, especially for economically weaker European countries, which were used to undergo unpleasant but much needed and unavoidable adjustment, bringing devaluations of their currencies repeatedly in the past, were well known in advance as well. All economists who deserve to be called economists were aware of the fact that Greece and some other countries were doomed to fail, having been imprisoned in such a system. History gives us similar examples, many examples. The case of Argentina is, I hope, still not forgotten, and it was easier to solve it because its currency board is a weaker and more easily dissolvable form of monetary union. The benefits promised as a result of accepting a common currency never arrived. The assumed increase in international trade and in financial transactions was relatively small and was more than offset by the costs of this arrangement. In good weather, I mean in good weather in economic sense, even the non-optimal currency areas can function as all kinds of fixed exchange rate regimes did for some time. When bad weather comes, as the financial and economic crisis at the end of the last decade, all the inconsistencies, weaknesses, inefficiencies, discrepancies, imbalances, and disequilibria become evident, and the monetary union ceases to properly function. This can't be considered a surprise. In the past, all fixed exchange rate regimes, like the Bretton Woods system, needed exchange rates realignments sooner or later, which is another argument found in every elementary economic textbook. The expectations, better to say wishes or dreams, that a very heterogeneous European economy would be made homogeneous by means of monetary unification were proved to be wrong. The European economies have diverged, not converged, since the introduction of the euro. The elimination of one of the most important economic variables of the exchange rate from the existing economic system led to a certain blindness of politicians, economists, bankers, and all other economic agents. I have a personal experience in this respect. Some of you remember that 20 years ago there was a dissolution of another monetary, political, and fiscal union called Czechoslovakia, and I was organizing the split of Czechoslovakia. And at the beginning of February this year, months ago, we in the Czech Republic remembered the 20th anniversary of the monetary disintegration with Slovakia. Our experience is quite clear. We were together for 70 years, but we had to accept that the institutional integration, or to call it nominal integration, was not sufficient for the elimination of economic differences of both countries. And there were, of course, other reasons for the split of the former Czechoslovak Federation, but the economic ones were very important. As the last federal Minister of Finance, I know something about it. Some people in Europe do not want to look at it seriously. At the recent EU-Asia summit in Laos in November 2012, I found it almost fascinating when the Spanish Minister of Foreign Affairs stated there quite officially as regards the euro, and I quote, "We were not warned in advance about the possible consequences of the European common currency." This is a statement he was telling the presidents and prime ministers of Asian countries, which was another irony. I must say, everyone was warned. Some people just did not listen. Let's not be misled. When discussing the current European problems, it is wrong to concentrate on the achievements or failures of individual European countries, e.g. on Greece or any other country in the European South. Greece did not bring about the current European problem. Greece, on the contrary, is the victim of the Eurozone system of one currency. The system is a problem, not Greece. Greece made just one tragic error, to enter the Eurozone. Everything else, okay, everything else was the usual behavior of Greece, which and I suppose we all don't have a right to criticize. Greece's degree of economic efficiency or inefficiency and its propensity to live with a sovereign debt was and should have been well known to anyone. Letting Greece leave the Eurozone in an organized, well-prepared way, and we have some experience with letting Slovakia leave our Czechoslovak Federation. I think letting Greece leave the Eurozone would be the beginning of a long journey of this country to a healthy economic future.